Merry Christmas, one and all! Don't I look ready for the holiday season? It's like, yeah, blue. But, yeah, this is my super duper long end of the year, I guess, holiday special video for 2010. And the reason it's my super duper long video and why it's broken up into several parts is because it will be my last video of 2010. It will be the last time you hear from me. Mainly because of the holiday season, I want to take some time to relax because obviously, everybody's schedule gets thrown out of whack, and I just want to take some time to just relax and kind of enjoy the holidays. The part about the season that I love. And so yeah, this will be the last you hear of me, and I'm going to ejaculate my awesomeness all over this YouTube channel by breaking this up into a few parts. I'm not sure how long it's going to be. We'll find out, depending on how long it takes me to film this damn thing. And, yeah, it'll be the last you hear of me for the year and the last you ever hear of me ejaculating anything, I promise. So let's start with the question and answer that I promised a couple weeks ago. Yeah, Kim San, who sent this question in for the second video, but I couldn't get to it because of time. So I apologize for the wait, buddy, but here it is. If you were part of the creative team, how would you book the storylines from one pay-per-view to the next as it relates to the build-up to get us to purchase it? Well, I'm actually going to get into this a little later because I'm going to do some pay-per-view previews and reviews, I guess part 2 or 3 or whatever. I didn't organize this real well, but whatever. But I kind of talked about it last week when I previewed Final Resolution. Nobody in wrestling has patience anymore. The fans have not been conditioned to have patience. They've been conditioned to think, oh, they're doing a feud on TV, so we're going to get the match at the next pay-per-view. And it doesn't have to be that way. I don't think the world title needs to be defended on every pay-per-view because, to me, the world title should be special. And if it's defended at every pay-per-view, then it's really not all that special. I remember, I think it was Genesis '09. TNA put Sting versus Rhino as their world heavyweight title match, even though they had a Kurt Angle Jeff Jarrett match that had been built up for months. Their big rematch. They really didn't need to have that world title match on there. And the only reason they put it on there was because it's like a quota thing or like a checklist. There has to be a world title match. So we put it on there, even though there was absolutely no reason to have one. I mean, Sting wasn't really doing much as far as feuds go. So I was like, use that show to build up a contender to Sting. Use that show to give another payoff to another big match. Like I said, Angle and Jarrett would have worked fine as a main event. I think it was an excellent match. But no, they felt like they had to have a world title match, and the world title match meant nothing, and nobody remembers it, so, it wasn't even worth it. And then you have WWE, where they have 2 world title matches on every single pay-per-view. And that just feels, what's the point of that? I mean, how am I supposed to care when you do it all the time? I remember when, a few years ago, when only WrestleMania and SummerSlam, the big 4, really, were the only double brand double brand pay-per-views, and it was kind of a big deal. But now it's like they do it all the time, and having 2 world title matches at every single pay-per-view just seems like overkill, and it seems like you're rushing feuds just to get them from show to show, and I think it kills your ability to have long storylines. I think if you stretch out the title matches, I'm going to get back to TNA later in this video, like I said, but if you stretch out the title defenses and not do it as often, it'll mean more when you do it, and you can have big matches main event. I often use the UFC as an example. They don't have a world title match. Lesnar didn't, when he was champion, he didn't fight every single month. A part of that is out of necessity. I understand that because it's impossible to train for a fight once a month. But, they could have... they just don't have to have him in that spot all the time. You can have somebody else main event. You can have a contenders match main event at a UFC pay-per-view, and it'll feel like a big deal. It'll matter. It'll be a big match. And the numbers speak for themselves. People are willing to buy those quote-unquote lesser matches, even though it's not the big attraction. And I'm not an avid MMA watcher, but I know success when I see it, and I know what's working when I see it. I think you can have a big grudge match main event at pay-per-view. I think you can have maybe even an IC title or a US title match headline a pay-per-view, or in TNA's case, an X Division or a tag team title match. If you can create a feud that warrants it, that's hot enough, that's exciting enough, and you create a match that people want to see, because that's all that matters. You just have to create fights, matches that people want to see. And the problem is it's impossible to do that if you rush everything. You're constantly pulling the trigger and blowing your load at every pay-per-view, because then you kind of run out of ideas, and everything just feels rushed. They just got to get to the next pay-per-view, and you'll wind up with cases where guys will fight each other 3 or 4 months in a row, and nothing changes. They just do it for the sake of stretching it out. Like Cena and Batista earlier this year, I think they wrestled each other like 3 or 4 times in a row, and all they changed really was the gimmick. When it got to the second match, and Cena won, and then they announced the third match, I was like, really? I mean, haven't we said all we needed to say with this feud? I mean, Cena's already beat him twice, so what's the big deal? I mean, do we really need to do this again? But they felt it was necessary, so there you go. But yeah, I think you can, and I'll get more into detail once again when I get into the pay-per-view portion of this extravaganza. But yeah, I think you can stretch things out. You don't have to have the best matches in the world or the biggest attractions at every single show. It is possible to, I think, stretch things out and let the feuds grow and develop, and then pull the trigger at the right time. And the example I always go back to is Sting and Hogan in '97. The match sucked. The only thing they did wrong there was that the match didn't deliver, and it's one of the reasons that WCW isn't here now. If anything, I look at that match and I think, they could have done a 30-second main event and gotten away with it if they were lazy. Just have Sting go out there and kill Hogan in 30 seconds, and it would have worked. It would have delivered. Because they didn't want to see a match. They just wanted to see Sting kill Hogan. And they obviously didn't execute the match right. But as far as the build-up goes, they held that off for a year and a half, and Hogan barely defended the title along the way. That made it more interesting, because Hogan's title defenses were more special because they were more rare, and Sting didn't wrestle at all during that time. So it felt like a big deal when they finally clashed, and it was one of the most exciting feuds in wrestling history at the time. I'm a big fan of WCW's product in 1997, and that was one of the reasons why. They showed patience. They showed that they had a plan, that they had foresight, that they had a direction. We all knew it was going to wind up being Sting and Hogan at some point because they kept building it up. But they made us wait, and they made us wait, and they made us wait, and they made us wait. And when they finally did it, biggest buy rate in WCW history. And you can't argue with the numbers. Unfortunately, creatively, it wasn't a critical success for various reasons, but the build-up was phenomenal, and I wish WWE would adopt that format. I wish TNA would adopt that format. One of the biggest mistakes that TNA ever made, in my opinion, was they gave up Angle and Joe way too soon. When Angle came to the company, that was the first thing they did, was Angle and Joe. And I felt like that should be your end point. That should be the direction that you go in. That shouldn't be the first thing you do right off the bat. Because obviously people really wanted to see that match. I would have said, okay, have them debut, do the thing where Angle headbutts Joe or whatever, and they have stare downs and fights and brawls and whatever, but don't give the match away. Hold it off for a year. I would have said, if I were booking, I would have said, okay, we'll get them to Bound for Glory 07. That's the goal. And we just got to hold it off until then. We just spend a year building that match up and making it mean something and making it matter. And I guarantee you, judging by the fact that the fans were so excited over it just after a month of build-up, they would have been 10 times more excited had they, stuck to their guns and held it until Bound for Glory 07. I remember when they did the match at Lockdown 08, and that felt like a huge deal. They built that up for, 3-4 months? And a friend of mine called me while that show was going on. I ordered that pay-per-view. And he called me. I was like, dude, could you imagine how big this match would be if this was the first time they ever faced each other? I'm like, yeah, I know. But yeah, you kind of waste your special attractions, and you empty out your pocket, or whatever metaphor you want to use, when you constantly try to do rematch after rematch, or you rush matches to the next pay-per-view. And I think it's detrimental to the product, and it makes the pay-per-view seem less special when you do that. So, yeah, basically what I would try to do if I were a member of creative, and again, I've said this before, I don't think I would be very good at it, because I'm not a good writer, I'm not a creative mind, I'm just telling you from a fan's perspective, I just know what I've seen in the past, and I know what worked. And, a lot of what I'm seeing now just isn't working. I would say just display some level of patience. Show some, just so have a direction, have an end game, and just be patient. You got to know when's the right time to pull the trigger on certain things, and that's what I would try to implement. Just have patience, and I know a lot of wrestling fans get pissed off. Like I've seen people bitch whenever they do try to hold things off. You know, like they built the feud, but they didn't do it at the next pay-per-view, so it was a waste of TV time or whatever. I've heard that complaint. But I think if you make a habit out of it, I think you can condition the wrestling fans to have patience. And that's a Jedi trait, right? Come on, be like a Jedi. Patience is good. Otherwise, you become Darth Vader and you destroy the galaxy. You don't want to do that, do you? Just saying. Of course, some people want to be Darth Vader because he's fucking awesome, so that's probably a bad example. But whatever. But yeah, that's my answer to that question. All right, Zahitbot. I hope I pronounced that right. How long do you think Dolph Ziggler will hold the IC title, and who do you think he will lose it to? I have absolutely no idea. I don't care about the IC title. And it's a shame, too, because Rey Mysterio and Chris Jericho did a great job of kind of reestablishing the title. And Morrison and Ziggler were kind of the next step down, and they were doing really well. And the IC title was actually becoming a bit of an attraction for a while. But then, you know, I think what happened was Undertaker beat Punk, and it started this awful domino effect where everything just kind of fell down. It's like, okay, well, Punk's out of the main event picture, and because he's out, Morrison can't move up, and because he can't move up, Ziggler's stuck where he is, because he's stuck where he is, and yada, 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 and so forth. And Drew McIntyre won the belt. You know, it was one of those too much too soon situations. And the belt just hasn't meant as much since. No fault of the talent. It's just, you know, again, bad booking. But as for how long Dolph will hold it, I really have no idea. I don't see any future contenders coming. Like, SmackDown is one of those shows where I look at it and I just don't see a direction. I just don't see a future there. So I really have no idea who's going to take that IC title. I'm trying to think right now. I have absolutely no idea. I would guess Kofi Kingston. I guess. But again, I don't really know. How long will Dolph hold it? As long as they think... And again, I love Dolph Ziggler as a talent, but I don't want to watch him because he's paired with Vicky Guerrero. And she's just obnoxious. Again, I really have no idea. I'll take a stab in the dark and say he'll hold it until January. How's that sound? Because again, I really have no idea. All right, Spidey Senses 67. What do you think of the way WWE is using Caval? Do you think he is on a losing streak to get the crowd behind him like Daniel Bryan, or are the WWE just wasting another good talent? Well, I don't think putting somebody on a losing streak is a good way to get them over. I don't understand why they do that. They did it with MVP. And it's like, how's a losing streak going to get him over? It just makes him look like a loser. I mean, it's kind of like in any real sport. You know, if a guy loses over and over and over again, you're going to start thinking of the guy as a loser. You know? So I don't know why they do that from time to time, because it really doesn't work, because all you're doing to me is just knocking the guy down, and then when you start actually doing something with him, you just have to rebuild him all over again. You're not elevating him anywhere when you have him lose all the time. But then again, I've talked about it before, you know, wins and losses don't mean shit anymore, so, you know, you could lose every match for a year and be world champion in 2 weeks. Jack Swagger. I don't like the way they're using Caval, especially since SmackDown is such a show that is in desperate need of something good. And they've got some great mid-card talents over there. I've said it's Ziggler. I like Cody Rhodes. I like Caval. Or Loki, whatever the hell you want to call him. I like a few of the guys over there, but the creative direction is just so bad. Caval's a loser. Cody Rhodes is doing this stupid dashing gimmick that I do not like at all whatsoever, because it's unnatural. It's just stupid. I don't get it. Like, okay, he acts like a psychopath when somebody touches his face, yet he's a fighter. I mean, that just makes him look like he has a mental illness and he's self-destructive. That doesn't really make him a good heel, I think. And Ziggler, he's paired with Vicky Guerrero, so I just don't give a shit. That show is in such desperate need of a good creative direction that I think trying to push somebody like Caval would be kind of cool, because he's different to WWE audiences. He's an exciting talent, and just showcase him. Do something with him. Put him in a feud or something. They keep saying they're going to feud him with Rey Mysterio. They haven't done that yet. I'd love to see those matches, quite honestly. But that's the state of things right now, unfortunately.